first one. I've always shut them down.
Oh, panels is you have to talk about
Hello?
be open.
Hey everyone, I think we're going to get started. Sorry about the late start on this last session. Thanks everyone for coming today. This is the last session here, and right afterwards is going to be followed by a super fun happy hour and featuring some great entertainment right outside. So hopefully everyone will be able to stay and join. My name is Monica Sack. I am one of the senior programming managers for the South by Southwest conference. Yay! Hope you make it in March down in Austin, Texas. Our conference and festival is definitely more about giving a platform to different people in our community to be able to share creative ideas and inspire everyone to connect with one another. But our event actually doesn't happen without the people to share the different ideas and projects that they're working on. We wouldn't have an experience without them. And it's people on the stage here who actually are the drivers of our conference and festival. They are the type of people that make it happen. So I wanted to give a quick introduction to who we're going to be speaking with today. Right to my left is Shane Franklin, better known as SF1. He's a drummer, music producer, dancer, actor, and MC who began his career in performance. Born in Denver, Colorado, SF1 started as a member of the drama group and the children and youth choir in church. A graduate of Denver School of the Arts Career Center, Education Center, SF1 studied both music and audio engineering. Upon completion of high school, he continued his education at Berklee College of Music and received his bachelor's degree in music business management from the University of Colorado, Denver. He plans to continue to inspire and touch the world with his music and performance ability as a whole. He is a national Grammy-considered recording artist and the night show host of 95.7 The Party. Next to him is Morgan. Morgan's journey began in his hometown of Nashville, where his earliest musical memories are singing with his mom. At age 9, he began taking voice and piano lessons and writing songs. After college, he made his way to New York City, where he just dabbled in theater. And now, telling his own stories, Morgan is drawn to writing about human resilience in his fearless, vulnerable, electronic soul songs. How we pull ourselves back even when we're knocked down 1,000 times, he says. I'm chasing the tension of wanting love, having it, and needing more. It's that desire to go beyond the surface. And last but not least, we have Leslie Collin. He's a CU alum and the founder of Giving is Value, better known as just Give. It's a new company that strives to inspire others and act as an amplification channel for corporate social responsibility initiatives. In starting Give, Leslie wants to create business that positively impacts society first and foremost, rather than having that be an afterthought. And then, not here with us, but probably joining us shortly is John Weiss, and I'll save the bio for when he gets here. So the first thing I wanted to do was open up a question for all of you guys, to get the conversation kicked off. So, in general, from a business side, you really need to understand who your audience is and how to communicate with them in a way where you're able to get your message out while still being true to yourself and what you're creating. Do you find that, in general, all of those elements line up? And if not, how do you approach balancing the business side of things with the personal pieces you're trying to create?
Well, I guess I'll go first. From my perspective, it's really what do your friends like? Go from that perspective. In business school, you learn if you try to market to everyone, you market to no one. So from my perspective, it starts from what do you like? What do my friends like? And then from there, it grows out. So That's my approach. Is I start from internally and say, because that's what I'm most passionate about is friends and family, and from there it just grows out. It says, all right, my friends like this. They like Morgan, like SF1. So what can we do from there? And then from there it grows.
Oh, go ahead.
For me, of course, in any product, you got to know your demographic, but it's emotional connectivity. We're all emotional beings in this world, of course, and knowing your demographic, knowing your product, and who you're marketing to. At the end of the day, for me, like because of being in music and being in radio, like I'm always out there. Like I have to be on top of like social events or world news, etc. What is a 15-year-old doing at 7 o'clock at night while they're listening to me right now? Are they thinking about boys? Are they, trying to figure out what they're going to take to school for lunch tomorrow? You know what I mean? Little stuff like that. But it's just staying engaged, knowing exactly who your target market is, and driving that product to them.
Yeah, I think I believe that your creativity sort of dictates your audience. Like for me, creativity is a feeling and is something that I spend my life chasing. I don't know how many people would say they're creators of music or creators of anything in their life. I feel like the energy with which you create sort of creates the audience. So if you go looking for an audience, I don't think you'll find it. But if you go looking for creativity, not only will you find creativity, but you'll find an audience.
So does that actually mean that you're not worried about the audience at all when you are creating, your music, different projects? Like,
I can speak to that. I think what's interesting about playing music is getting to feel people respond in real time. Like I'm playing later. We're playing later today, and to get to play music and share it with people, and then see where people like what their bodies do, like how their bodies are. It's impossible not to take that into the studio and think like, how can I capture that? How can I capture it more?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, my bad. Just piggybacking off of that, absolutely, because at the end of the day, you see somebody and you're like, this absolutely worked. This was amazing. You see how many people were excited about this. Now when I go create, I need to create solely on that. One, it turns into not wasting time and knowing exactly what your demographic and your target market wants. Therefore, brings in more people, brings in more dollars, brings more ticket sales, etc. But also staying true to yourself in that aspect. Is this something that I really like doing? They were grooving to it. Do I continue doing that, or do I want to do some ballads and stuff like that? But at that point, it becomes do I make music for myself and sit in the car and listen to it, or do I make music for the masses, and roll with it? So.
Well, yeah. See, from my perspective, I have to balance all that. I have to say to sponsors, this is what people groove to. This is what people like to listen to at 7 a.m. in the morning to get ready for work. So from my perspective, it's designing an experience that amplifies that, but it also speaks to the business side of, there's going to be X amount of footfall in area X. So there's a lot of synergy in that you have to create something for a specific group, but it's also centered around a great story, and that story starts with something that you're passionate about.
Yeah, I think it has to come from you. I think you can chase anyone else's idea for your whole life, but if you chase who you are for your whole life, that's the adventure I'm interested in. That's the adventure I'm interested in knowing about. Like when I meet people, is like, what are you passionate about? Not what do you do, but like, who are you and what drives you? And then that's the thing that is the only reason I wake up every day.
So in a lot of ways, the audience is actually helping you tap into the creative side, and it's helping you recognize actually things in you that you might not have known about otherwise. Like, you are going out into the world, looking at different things that are inspiring you from actually getting ideas from your audience, and in a way, you're creating stuff for yourself as well as the people who you personally are inspired by, in a way. Is that right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'd say so.
it's a synergy.
So Shane, I did want to ask you though, like, so you are both an artist as well as a radio personality. There are many, many different kind of audiences there. Like, you're trying to reach many, many different people. How do you go about identifying them and really understanding what it is that you're trying to give to all of those different groups?
For me, it's a blessing, and I was gonna say a blessing in disguise, but it's apparent. Literally, because I'm a hip hop, pop, kind of all over world producer, entertainer, etc. And then I'm on a top 40 rhythmic station with like Katy Perry's, Justin Bieber, stuff like that. So my music kind of morphs within to the station of what we play. So at the end of the day, it's, hey, this is what my demographic likes. Okay, go and listen to me on 95.7 The Party. And it's like, oh man, your music should play on this station. It's so perfect. And of course, like my PD, my program director, I'm always like, I'm like super humble. Like, I'm never like, oh man, everybody listen to my music. But I was like, I've got a new song, check it out. If you like it, maybe play it on the station. And they're like, okay, cool, whatever. Finally comes out and they're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. We want to play it. And I'm like, oh, this is beautiful, So for me, it becomes there is no difference. The only difference is when I'm out on the street, it's like, hey, you're SF1 from 95.7 The Party, or you're SF1, I saw you play at Gothic Theater the other night. So it's almost like wearing two different hats until people realize that I'm literally the same person, I guess more to say. So they kind of complement each other. I'm able to talk about my music on air, and then on air, I'm able to talk about everything station related. But really, I think my fan base are, between both. I think the biggest issue is just making sure people know that, SF1, the DJ, the radio personality, compared to SF1, the artist, the creative, is the biggest ordeal.
And are you actually trying to bring those two worlds together?
I think on accident, or on purpose, yes. They're there, because I never thought I'd be in radio. I kind of did radio in college at Berkeley just for fun. Like, okay, cool, extracurricular, let me go have a radio show, play the songs that I like to play. I was in a touring band for the longest. We kind of we were going to get signed, and it kind of, dismantled itself. So I was like, I need a job. Like, here I am, I'm back in Denver. What am I gonna do? Like, the industry is here. So I was like, well, let me get into radio. And at that point, it was like, I don't really want to be like the big wig upstairs making all the calls and stuff like that. But if anything, I like being around people. I like talking. So let me get on air. Might as well. And so that's kind of how like my life transitioned. So during the day, it's radio, and then on weekends, it's music or entertainment. So they just morphed together kind of gradually as my life changed.
Okay, Leslie, I did want to ask you a question about your GIV project. Mainly what it was that inspired you to start this. Like, did you notice that there was a hole that you needed to fill in this community? Like, it was a call to action for you regarding having this idea of corporate social responsibility?
Sorry, could you repeat that again?
He's getting situated over there.
I wanted to find out what your motivation was in you starting the GIV project.
Yeah, so in college, you go through the whole process of when you're about to graduate, your parents are asking you and your family is asking you, so we spent $100,000, what are you gonna do? And they hate the response, I don't know. So it's, part of it was pressure on my parents trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And the other part was talking with a lot of professors and seeing what you're best at, and through those conversations, I was always an idea guy that loved music, and everything centered around those two concepts of ideas and music, and naturally, as I was telling Shane and Morgan, I'm a frustrated musician. I wish I was a musician. I try everything to be a musician, but I can't sing, so surround yourself with musicians, and that in some weird twisted way, it helps you realize that dream. But in college, as I was getting ready to graduate, through networking and through following the advice of professors and teachers and whatnot, I got linked up with a marketing agency. And then from there, I started at a company called Red Light Management. Red Light Management at the time, we were managing One Republic and Alicia Keys, and it seemed like it made sense. It's like I can't be a musician, but I could manage these guys' careers, you know. And from there, it graduated to working for a company called AEG Live, who produces the shows that these guys perform at. And I just serendipitously ended up at those companies, you know. So from there, I thought, you know, I really like what South by Southwest does, and I really love what Global Citizen does. Is there a way to marry those two concepts and bring them to Denver? You know, so through a lot of hard work, you try to negotiate that process. And for me, it started off with questions from my mother and parents, and then it went from serendipitously landing at great agencies and companies. And from there, I said, you know, making money is great, but I wanted to make an impact and be having fun doing it, you know. So starting the GIV project centered around on that. I'm great at ideas and storytelling, but I want to make sure that I'm doing something good. So the things that speak to me are things like South by Southwest and Global Citizen. Let's marry those two concepts and create something in Denver.
Okay, and as you all noticed, John Weiss has now joined us. I did not give your bio because we weren't sure if you were going to make it, but you are indeed here. So he has spent his 19-year career fully immersed in design, spanning multiple agencies and disciplines with a singular focus on how to create compelling and rich experiences that are rooted in elegant design, innovative technology, and create lasting relationships and shape the future. He's essentially our South by Southwest poster boy. He's all about creating experiences to inspire, which I love. After the acquisition of his own design agency in 2008, he went on to work for some very large PR firms, digital agencies. He was also the executive creative director at WebMD Health Services, and he worked at CP&B. And in 2013, he co-founded Human Design, a full-service design agency working with clients that include the UN, Discovery, Twitter, Nike, Vulcan, Adidas. 2 of those are from my hometown of Portland, Oregon, yay, and several startups spanning multiple verticals. So John, since you have joined us late, I will just direct a quick question to you. You've worked with a lot of different companies designing different types of experiences for people to engage and learn. What are some of the biggest things that you have to think about when creating these stories so that whatever message you want to convey is actually received by your intended audience?
Thank you for that.
Just putting you on the spot there as you...
No, it's great. I appreciate you reading my bio too, because I was going to make a joke that it's really boring. My bio is boring. But I'm sorry I'm late. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for the question. So what do we think about when we design stories for our clients? And really, story is everything. Because if you think about it, if you don't have a story, you kind of cease to exist. Whether it's the story of your past, whether it's the story of your future and where you want to go and what your plans are, if you don't have your story defined, you really do cease to exist. And what I mean by that is if you don't have it, you really get reduced down to a set of facts and figures and mathematical bits and pieces. So if you think about people's legacy in your own history, there's a story that each of us individually want to leave for our individual brand, but probably for our own companies. And when you want to leave that, your hope is that that story is strong enough to resonate with people that it lives on. Because otherwise you do just get reduced to a bio, 19 years in design, CPB, stint at CPB, WebMD. You know, you get to these data points and there's no intimacy in those points unless you know the story. So when we talk to our brands or these companies, we really try to tell them, if you want to tell a story that, if you want to call it authentic, transparent, open, whatever words you want to use, the fact of the matter is you want your story to be heard and understood and last over time. And you want it to be historically correct. You want to know that whatever story you're telling now, 5 years from now, will be historically correct. That when people look back, they say, yes, John Weiss is consistent in what he says, what he does, who he is. The brand, same thing with the experience. So for us, when we're talking to our clients, we really want to let them know that it is much deeper and much more rich than just, well, what's the narrative, what's the story, what's our social media calendar treadmill that we need to push out every month, what are our 2 Facebook posts today. We really let them know that it is really, really way deeper than that. So we have a loose framework where we start with what are the truths of why you exist and why do people need to know those truths and how do we surface those and bring those to the top. And then more importantly, how do we pair that with what is the unspoken truth? What is attention? What do we need to lean into for your story that people can really gravitate towards and either feel familiar with and comfortable with or identify with or bristle with? Is it divisive? So that's sort of a loose framework that we walk our clients through with their story to really try to instill the importance of it with them.
Morgan, I did want to ask you a question because you have had a lot of different experiences from childhood until now. I'm sure they've plenty of shaping. And how are you able to combine all of those elements to create such a unique sound and message in your music?
Thank you for, that's a beautiful review of the music, so thank you.
I gotta be honest, I heard your music and I was like, that cannot be his voice. That is amazing. It sounds like an angel. I'm not that.
Thank you.
I was that shocked or anything.
No, I'll take it. I mean, it's an interesting panel cross section that we have here. Something everyone said resonated with me, but we come from very different, places, which is basically life, Something you just said, hi, I'm Morgan, nice to meet you, is I love that you cut my resume sort of short because it really, it doesn't matter for me or for anyone to rattle off, things I've done. And when she talks about my childhood to now and the music that I'm making, we're not just talking about great things, we're talking about a lot of hurt and a lot of pain and a lot of joy. There's a lot of joy that I've had, and there's also been a lot of loss. Combine that with the stages that I've played on and the places that I've been and the people that I've met. That to me is what life and music and living is all about. It's not what you did, it's why you did it and how you did it and who you met along the way. So it's really an honor to receive, I'm gonna just say, a compliment like that, because I hope that my music encompasses everywhere I've been. And I'm from Nashville, Tennessee, which is such an anomaly because that feels like the farthest thing from me. It also feels like the farthest thing from my music. There's no fiddle in my songs. There's no banjo. There was an electric banjo once, but I took it out. And an electric lap steel, and I also took that out. But it's I think I don't know everyone in this room, but I assume everyone comes from very different places and has very different experiences. And I hope that all of your different experiences, even if you feel like they don't make sense, that you use them to make something, because that's gonna be the thing that makes you you and makes his job easier and makes the world a better place.
I guess that kind of ties into the idea of being authentic to yourself and your experience with whatever it is that you're creating, because that probably is, without that, then your music is almost, like John was saying, just a bio. It's just words that will easily be forgotten. Yeah. Would you agree with that?
I think it's really easy to look perfect in the internet, and I think there's value in beauty. I'm not saying that beauty is not beautiful, but there's also there's something very real about pain and there's something just very real about pain that I think allowing your work to be sprinkled with all of the things that are you and for me, that is, that's joy and pain, like that's love and loss, and you could skirt over it, and I could also not talk about it, and and that could be fun. But the truth is like the whole journey to arrive here is like, I think, what is the best part.
So, touching on social media and looking perfect, because we live in an age of social media now, and how everyone is kind of afraid to put the wrong foot forward, I guess, because there are ramifications. There's always a consequence. How do you all deal with your social media presence? Like, how do you shape that story? What do you think about? Do you worry about how it is going to affect your business in a negative way? Like, everyone can theoretically talk about all of the positive ways, but yeah, everyone is so connected. There are so many different groups that have so many different opinions. How do you navigate through your social media persona the best possible without getting too much flack from everyone around you?
Well, I could speak from my time at Red Light. We would tell our musicians, do you, be as authentic as you possibly can, because people gravitate towards that. People don't gravitate towards anything inauthentic. And I'm not going to name musicians that are inauthentic, but you know who those are, and you gravitate.
I was like, I'm curious.
Ooh,
No,
I'll
do
get
it.
in trouble because some of those
Don't do
musicians
it.
we work with. But I think for the most part, we just tell musicians, be your authentic self. People are gonna. That's the thing. I'm a big music fan in general, and there was a DVD I was watching a while ago, and the thing that musicians get a lot is that's what I thought but couldn't say. So if you're busy trying to think of the perfect response or trying to have the perfect Instagram post, that's going to get lost in translation versus you just being real. So the biggest advice as far as navigating the social media medium is to just be yourself, and people are going to gravitate towards that more than anything. If you're wrong, if you're right, it doesn't matter. As long as you're your authentic self, that's the best thing you could do for yourself and as a brand. Because people, like my mother, for example, she doesn't understand that musicians are a business unto themselves. Every musician is a startup business. You have to do you have to cut your teeth. You have to play the coffee shows. You have to do a lot of things, and in those moments, that's your most authentic self. I remember seeing a musician, and you'd hear a lot of great stories, and he was telling funny, witty things, and then he became really big, and then he lost those witty, funny things that made him great. And then he did an interview in some magazine that put him in a bad light because he was trying to be not his authentic self. So for the most part, it's just being your authentic self.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. In my stance, of course, being the entertainer and then being associated with a big company like iHeartMedia, like 95.7 The Party, we're nowhere near political, like, at all. So of course, there's times where it's like, man, there's so much going on in the world right now, but we're talking about the 20 top Oreos on social media today, and people are dying, but we're talking about how great this Oreo is. Fun. But of course, I have to watch what I do as a personality with that association. But SF1 as the entertainer, as the person, as the brand, as an influencer, of course, I can do whatever I want. But at that point, once again, it goes back to knowing your demographic and knowing what to post and what to do, etc. I think when you emotionally connect with people on social media, that's what people like. They want to see the raw you. Of course, it's the same thing with, Justin Bieber's meltdowns, or Selena Gomez had a kidney transplant. Nobody knew about it, but now everybody's in a frenzy of it because it's like, oh my gosh, I feel like I know her now, even more so that I want to go buy her new album whenever it comes out, whenever she's not kicking it with her boo thing the weekend or whatnot. But it just makes you want to be a part of them even more. It's like I can log on and see, SF1, etc., and be like, yo, I see he's on a panel today, or I see that his nephew is being cute as always. This is amazing. And that's like the light, cute stuff. But at the end of the day, like going back to social issues and stuff like that, if it's passionate to you, you know, of course, you want to make sure you're not candy coating it, because it's like, yo, man, you know, you're not into this, and I can absolutely see. I feel like your audience can absolutely tell genuine from the non. Who was it? Demi Lovato came out and said, you know what, I'd rather lose a bunch of fans than to sit silently and not speak about the issues that pertain to my heart and my soul, and then die, basically, you know, lose a piece of yourself. So I absolutely wholeheartedly believe in that. You know, there's always going to be a market for you, and those people are going to flock to you, but in that essence, you got to be true to yourself at every given moment, especially through social media.
Yeah, I think, I mean, when you're Demi Lovato, there's a certain, like, you already have the numbers to back up, you know, if you lose 1 million, it's fine.
Yeah.
But I'm not disagreeing.
She's safe right now.
She's fine. But, you know, I spend a lot of time thinking about what my voice is, and not like what my singing voice is, but like what's really on my heart. You know, like there's a lot of stuff going on in the world, a lot, but I am not meant to carry the weight of every single issue in the world, and I don't think that's authentic either. You know, there's a lot of talk in selling authenticity, you know, like in packaging authenticity, and I think that's the least authentic thing in the world, you know. So I mean, this is a small thing, but I do it when I post. If I feel like I'm trying to say someone else's thought, I just don't post it, and then wait. And usually, like a minute later, I'm like, oh, that's what I was trying to say, and then I say it. You know, it's like my own check and balance.
So, John, it's a little bit different for you from the design. Like, you are kind of creating that stuff. How do you work with companies and ensure that they are, especially in today's world of everyone being cynical, like how do you help a company try and push through all of that cynicism so that they can really show what their end message and story that they're trying to convey is to their audience?
That's a really good question. I love all the answers, by the way. And it really does go into individual branding and then company branding. And, and whether or not what I just said was really smart, you guys missed it. Sorry. I'm a dad. I'm super cheesy. The answers were great. Social media, I love social media. I love technology. I think everybody should be on board with it. They should be on board with the fact that it closes the gap. It shrinks our world. It connects people in meaningful ways. I think it's always really, really interesting and funny and kind of sad in a way when people get really down on Facebook or social media of like, whatever happened to picking up the phone? We lost that. To me, that just seems ludicrous. Can you imagine when the telephone was invented and people being like, this is ridiculous. Whatever happened to a letter? And us writing and waiting 30 days to get a letter on, you know, Pony Express. This phone is ridiculous. I just think it's silly. I think technology is here. It's changing lives. It's making things better, and I think people need to embrace it. But our advice, or my personal advice to individuals or brands, is when it comes to social media or technology, do you, be yourself, be authentic. But for me, it's about managing energy and value, and it's those two things. Do I want to put in the energy for the value that I get out? And it's all about me and my energy. And if I'm getting stressed out about creating the correct Instagram post so I look really good, then I'm just not going to worry about it. I'm not going to post it. It's not a good use of my energy, and it's a waste of my mind. But if I feel like I'm going to put some energy into this and the value's there, and I'm going to craft it. If you look at my Instagram, it's pretty, my Instagram's a little less. Like Instagram's personal, Facebook's hyper-personal, Twitter's hyper-business. If you look at my Twitter feed, it's very curated. And I'm okay with that. Because for me, I use Twitter. The energy I put into Twitter is for the value I get out of it, which is business connections and those sort of things. The energy I put into Instagram is for my friends and my family to see my life. And I don't care if I throw a filter on a photo. if that's the energy I want to put into it, because the value I want to get out is that I want to look in this picture or it's fun, that's okay. Facebook, the same thing. So for me, it's energy and value, and brands need to determine where they want to play and where the attention is and where is the valuable attention that they actually care about. If you have people will talk about you as a brand, whether you're a musician or a business, it will happen to you, and they will be talking about you in multiple spaces. Maybe someone's talking about you on Twitch, for all we know, while they're creating a video game video. You never know. Like, you can't monitor that stuff, and at some point you don't care about it. But the attention that you do care about, that's where you have to be in the conversation. So some brands, maybe they don't care about Instagram, Facebook, but you should care about Yelp and Google review, and you should be monitoring that because that's the lifeblood of your business. So you should be on Yelp, and you should be responding to the bad reviews, and you should be engaging in those conversations. But maybe it's not authentic to be creating content on all these other social platforms. Maybe that's a bad use of your energy and value. Instead, put that energy in managing and monitoring conversations like on Yelp and Google reviews and those sort of things, because that will have bigger impact and bigger value on your business than trying to create a persona over here of like, we're the world's best coffee sort of thing. That's a long-winded answer, but hopefully that helps.
The world's best coffee, there's several of them, but they all do exist in Portland, Oregon. I'm just saying that.
That's right. I thought Elf found it in New York.
We have about 10 minutes left, and I did want to open up some Q&A to the audience. Yeah. Oh, we have a mic person. Oh, the
Works? No. Mic.
I'll go first. I hear you talking about storytelling. How does that differ from branding, or is it the same thing with a new name, or what's up with that?
I'll let John go first.
I think it's the same. I think it's the same thing. I mean, ideally, all your brand is to me is what are your core convictions or your pillars that everything should be, all of your work, all of your actions, everything you do should be thrown up against those pillars, and then that is your brand. So if you say, I stand for these 3 things, then every story you create, conversation you have should map back to those convictions, which to me are your brand. So to me, it's one and the same. It's if you want to have an individual brand and you want to say, I want to be the best musician, or I want to be the best business owner, or whatever, great. What are your convictions? What do you stand for? What do you put every single action and interaction that you do throughout the day? What do you put those up against so that you're making sure that you are staying true to yourself and you are staying aligned? So to me, it's the same thing. Story and brand is the same thing.
For me, it's kind of the same thing, but not really. Branding is what happens when a business person comes into a singer-songwriter brainstorming session. It goes into and you start thinking about things like, where is the most footfall? Are people paying attention more to Yelp reviews, or are they paying attention to Instagram posts? And where is the traffic? Where is the audience? Where is the audience? Period. So from a story writing perspective, you're really thinking about it's basic 101. It's beginning, middle, and end. How do I create something that is passionate and people gravitate towards? So from a branding perspective, branding is what happens when you incorporate business into the storytelling.
Okay, so the woman in the red flower dress standing.
Oh, yeah.
Hi guys. So what I've gotten so far from this panel is that storytelling should be intentional. So I wanted to ask you guys, how do you, in every field that you guys are in, how do you intentionally tell a story, and what story are you telling? So like Monica, when you build South by Southwest and you're producing those shows, how are you being intentional in storytelling? What story are you telling? SF1, same thing for you on your radio show and down the line.
I'm just the moderator.
You're human.
You part of this too.
I think for South by Southwest, like our, I never really think of it as storytelling because I think of it more like a message for our event because we really are just a platform that is trying to highlight all of the stories that other people are telling so we can connect different people in our community together. Like that's the whole purpose of our event anyway, is just working on connecting, inspiring, and having creative things come out of our event that last beyond just our event, that carry on after our event is over. And that's for us where we get the value, is like the lasting effect of the event after the event is over. Because that's to us when the work really begins for our community.
I think for me, in the entertainment industry as well as radio, my job in regard to storytelling, it has to be quick, it has to be nimble. With us living in a world where people's attention spans are so fast, you know, you got to get the message across quickly. For 95.7 The Party, our segments are literally, I have anywhere from 2 seconds to 30 seconds to talk. You imagine trying to say something in 2 seconds? It's just like, hey, I'm SF1, hope you're having a good night. Bam. All right, on to the next one. But at the same time, going into radio, there's so much technology out there, and people are like, radio is dying, radio is dead. And it's like, no, it's not. People still absolutely listen to radio. So at that point, you can listen to any song anywhere, Spotify, Tidal, YouTube, anywhere. But the personality has to be the one that keeps you coming back, listening for more. So for me, it's engaging the listener. It's making sure that I know what I'm talking about. I can't get on and be like, it's raining outside, y'all. And it's like, no, it's not. You know, so making sure that you're absolutely, you know, staying true to yourself and all of the obvious, of course, and especially in music, you know, and especially in pop music, like what we do, you know, you've got, you know, nowadays, what, 3 minutes and 30 seconds to like really convey a message. I just broke up with my girlfriend, or, you know, I'm sad today, or I'm extremely happy. But how do you get all of that joy into that little bit of time? So making sure that you're not boring a listener, of course, but making sure that they're well enticed, you're getting your message across, and that they're able to take something away to where it feels like they have fills a hole that maybe they've been looking for to fill.
That's awesome. I have no plan when I create music. I write from wherever I am, and I have nothing in mind except for what is trying to express itself. That's that side of it. But I did something a couple years ago. I wrote a mission statement. I have a label of my own, and I put out my music. And I wrote a mission statement for what that label is, and the word was wanderlost, because that's where I was. And I wrote it down, and I still come back to it like at least every week. And even though the way that the music industry is shifting and music kind of comes out in these pieces, I try to just keep my mind and my heart like on that mission. And yeah, and I think I'm doing a good job of sort of like, if you look at how the visuals and the songs have been coming, they're sort of all tied into what's about to come out in a couple weeks. That's I think probably the thesis of all of that.
My plan is usually it's how do we act as an amplification channel for the musicians, and juxtapose that with doing something that's great, you know. So it's very, the business side takes a backseat. Don't tell Hulu this, but it definitely takes a backseat to how do we create something first and foremost that people gravitate towards and are vibing with. And then from there, we make concessions where we can, but we try to stay true to the ethos of what the artist is trying to say, what they're trying to convey, but also how do we make sure that it's an experience that is curated in authenticity, but it's also it puts you in a position to do good. You know, it's when you have a platform where I don't know what the numbers for South by Southwest are, but last I read, in 8 days, whatever it is, they generate a couple 100 million. you know, and that's generating businesses, and that's generating revenue for a lot of people that need it, you know. So it's great to create something in that the amalgamation of business and storytelling and doing good all comes together in one entity, you know, and that I try to make concessions little by little, but make sure that it's also true to what the musicians are and to what your ethos is as a company, as a person. Yeah. And then hopefully the people gravitate towards that.
Well, and that's, you asked about, the question was, when you're doing storytelling, do you want to stay really intentional? Absolutely. That intentionality, though, needs to be focused on you. It needs to be focused on you and what is a story that you're telling, one that you really believe in, and one that you feel accurately reflects your values and your beliefs, independent of how anybody receives it. What I mean by that was, you mentioned something really interesting with your music about hearts and minds. You know, there's the thing that you want people to know about your story, and there's the thing that you want people to feel about your story. And a lot of storytelling, when it gets down to, okay, you have literal tactics, which you have literal constraints, like 2 seconds. So there's literal constraints sometimes that, in that constraint, forces a story to be in a certain form, but other times you don't have those literal constraints. And what I mean by that is, I see a lot of people when they decide, I want to tell my story, I want to be intentional about it, they almost rub out the edges before it even goes live. Meaning, well, it's too emotional. People are type A. They need to know what am I getting to right away? And they strip out all the emotion, all the esoteric like nuance of the story, all the heart. And I feel like that's a big shame, because you're coddling your audience and you're saying, look, my audience is type A, they're busy, just give them what they need. Again, you're reducing it down to facts and data points. It's okay to have that nuance. And when you go into what's brand and story and they're one and the same, you have to have that nuance, because I guarantee if you do and you keep the heart to your story and your intention around who you are, the people that you really care about are the ones that want to engage with you long term. And when they have that conversation with you and you start dropping these little other data points, like, oh yeah, here's the other thing. The reason why that sentence was here was because when I was 7, this, you know, you start to extract more and more value out of your narrative that people are like, oh, that's really, really interesting. That's amazing. And suddenly they're like, wow, you put a ton of thought into this. Super shameless plug. Our logo for human design is 23 colors. We break every single design rule that there is when it comes to branding. Branding is you have 2 elements in a brand, no more. A lockup, you have typeface, one color. Except we have 23 colors in our logo, and it's a shape. It's not a DNA strand, it's not a thumbprint. We're called human design, but it's nothing overtly human. It's a shape that is solid, but inherently flawed. 23 colors, 23 chromosomes make up one unique human being. And when we blend those colors, we create infinite possibilities. Our name is Human Design. We lead with human, design in service of humans. We have so much narrative track in our brand because we were intentional in how we designed it. But the tip of the iceberg that people see is a 23 color logo that says Human Design, and that's it. So long-winded story, but I just think that storytellers are doing a major disservice to themselves when they rub out the edge and they coddle their audience and they say they need to consume it way too fast, just like get it out, get it out, get it out. And when you have a constraint, absolutely, you have to get it out. So you also have to be honest about the constraints. But people are willing to go deep on content if it's valuable. You know, there was a study about the 8-second filter about how people have like an attention span of a goldfish, so I probably lost you guys about 6 minutes ago. No. But the only reason why people have that filter is because they're inundated with noise. They have to. It's a survival instinct. You have so much junk coming at you today. You're not filtering it out because you're lazy or you have ADD. You're filtering it out because you literally don't have the time. Brand messaging is coming at you. You're literally like, nope, yep, nope, nope, nope. You're literally filtering out fast because you literally do not have the time. But if you see a story or a piece of content that resonates with you, most of the time, I guarantee you're probably willing to go deep on that. You're probably willing to read the article or listen to the podcast or listen to the song or listen to the entire album instead of one song on it. So long-winded answer, but yes, intentional towards what you want and what your heart is, and don't rub out the edge, because it's ridiculous, in my opinion, how many stories I see that are so milquetoast, and they're so obvious. They're just trying to get what's that one hook to get someone to read, to convert, to click, to buy, to listen to a song, to do. I don't know. That was a soapbox.
We're kind of out of time, but let's take one more if it's
Okay,
fast. Anyone?
okay, let's-
Sorry.
Let's go someone on very end.
Yo, quick responses, guys. But what advice would you give for an artist that's kind of trying to make that evolution, that next step, playing at coffee shops, writing a bunch of music? Would you direct them more towards like, because we talked about social media and like putting that out and putting yourself out there, and then also on that same line of like just sticking to your guns and staying at home and writing music and practicing to when you get in a studio you can do actual work, or kind of like a good balance of both, putting yourself out there and like staying on the grind, being a little kind of hidden?
Yeah, I could speak to this. Coming from AEG and Red Light, the thing, people are gonna find you, you know. So I think Bieber was found on YouTube, and there's a number of stories that you could go out there and find out where random musician X was found out at a coffee shop, you know. So from a big label perspective, the thing to do is to cut your teeth at local coffee shops and then build an audience. It's akin to starting being a startup. You know, you first have to know who you are with intention, and then from there start small but think big. You know, so that was one of the advice I was given by someone was, Leslie, you have a lot of great ideas, or musician X, you want to play the Pepsi Center or Red Rocks, but let's start with the coffee shop with 20 people first. You know, you have to learn how to navigate certain things before you get to the ultimate end goal. You know, so to answer your question, the best advice I would give to a musician is cut your teeth, play as many shows as you possibly can. The managers and A&R people from Universal or Red Light or whatever, they'll find you, you know, but you have to be ready when your opportunity comes. You have to be ready to capitalize on it when the manager says, hey, Morgan, I think you have great music. Do you have anything to give to me? Yeah, I do. Here's the CD. You know, go to my Spotify. You know, like, you have to be ready for it. And that all happens by just going out there and playing as much as you can and doing as much as you can until that person finds you.
It's literally everything that this man just said, but piggybacking, it's everything that you said too. It's everything. Main thing is you got to have passion. It hurts me to my heart when I hear entertainers who are like, oh, I'm only doing this because I want the women. I'm only doing this because I want to check. And it's like, you're in it for the wrong reason, bro. Like, come on now. It's having that passion, is honing in on that craft, and making sure that, of course, what we've been talking about, staying true to yourself. That's just within. Of course, doing stuff like this, networking, being everywhere, like literally being everywhere at shows, support other artists, make friends with them, because you never know. Somebody's like, yo, man, you do music too? Oh, sweet. We need an opener for a show that we're doing at such and such. And next thing you know, you're piggybacking off of their numbers. Of course, it's the social media. It's making your brand. It's knowing what you want to do. It's knowing who your demographic are, and really reaching out to them at that point. But like I said, it's just every little thing. In the music industry nowadays, back in the day, of course, you had a label when, you know, before the independent age and everything, who would come in and do 95% of the work, and you just had to show up. They put you out there, they do your thing. Nowadays, you have to do 95% of the work, and they step in and say, hey, great job. Now we'll take you to where you need to be. You know, so that's what they're looking for nowadays is, all right, you've got it. You've got your website. You've got your social media numbers up. You've got this amount of sellout shows. Your music is doing this and that and that and this. You're in these different markets. You're actually touring? Wow, that's dope. All right, now we're gonna mess with you. So it's literally at that point making sure that you stay on top of your craft and finding new ways. Like I said, the industry in the music world, you gotta stay nimble, because with new technologies coming out and new ways to interact with your fan base and new ways to put out music. And of course, with the digital age, music is free. So of course, you got to go out there and you got to make money somehow. So of course, it's making sure your performance is amazing. So there's a lot of people who don't want to perform in the industry, and it's like, ooh, you cutting yourself off, bro. Like, you got to get out there and you got to be in front of people. So making sure even like your people skills are on top of things as well. So.
Yeah, you said something earlier. He said something earlier that I feel like it doesn't matter what industry you're in, that everyone, I'm going to just say it again if you missed it, is that he works at a radio station, is also an artist himself, and the opportunity came up where he shared his music, which I know what that feels like, to sort of be doing a double life kind of moment, and then you take that opportunity and you're like, yo, I have this thing, and I can promise you your life will be made by moments like that. You know, like the moment where you just go up to that person that you like, you know who that person is, and you're not intruding on them, you just want to have a genuine reaction, and that person will end up like playing your song. That's happened for me before. The other thing I was going to say is that David Bowie said he never plays to the gallery, and whether you're in a coffee shop or you're in a stadium, you should have the same energy, like always. And I'm just going to leave it with that because I think about that all the time.
One more thing, I'm sorry. I'm just like, I forgot to mention too. Sometimes, and I think right now, like entertainment is everywhere. But sometimes there's people who are like, it's hard. I've got friends who are like, I can't get booked anywhere. Nobody's picking me up. Nobody's doing anything. When I first started, I didn't get booked at all, it was kind of sad at first. And it was like, man, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? But after a while, I kind of just started doing my own stuff. Like, hey, you know what? Nobody's going to book me. I'm going to do stuff myself. I'm going to rent this place. I'm going to put together the marketing plan. I'm going to have who's going to perform, blah, 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 X, Y, Z, and just do it. You know, sometimes it's taking that leap of faith and saying, you know what, nobody else is going to make my dreams come true. Well, shoot, I'm going to make my dreams come true. And that's kind of like, you know, that's kind of how I got into the industry here in Denver and then started to branch out even more. So if somebody tells you no, you're like, I'm not going to take that. I'm going to go somewhere else. You said no, well, I'm going to say yes, and I'm going to make this happen. So there's definitely ways, there's avenues to make sure that your dreams come true. And not just in music, but in anything that you want to put your heart and soul into.
Thank you to our speakers today. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Oh, thank you.